Hey guys, in this video I'm going to talk about the top 5 things that as a filmmaker I just do not use or I try to avoid, and maybe you should as well. Stick around to find out what they are. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Scott Stevenson, and if you read that title, then you know that this is the top 5 things that I do not use as a filmmaker. So what does that mean? Why do I not use them? Why do I try to avoid them? Well, a lot of these things kind of hurt my workflow, or I've just noticed that over the years they're just not very productive to professional filmmaking, and they can actually be kind of a detriment. The first thing that is on my list of things that I do not use as a filmmaker, editor, videographer, creator, whatever you want to call yourself, is LUTs. I just do not use LUTs. What is a LUT? A LUT is known as a lookup table, and a lot of times on set, LUTs will be applied to footage so that the director or the DP can get an idea of what the footage is going to look like after it's color graded. That can be useful sometimes to kind of get the feel and the tone of the film, but a lot of times people are, selling LUT packs or presets or different things like that to kind of change or alter the way your footage is looking, and it's just sort of like a filter, like an Instagram filter that just kind of gets slapped on your footage. If you think about like the Instagram filters, some of them look completely terrible and make your image just look terrible, and that's essentially what a LUT does. In a lot of ways, you just don't have a lot of control over what that filter is doing and what it's doing to the certain colors. And I think that it's really, really important to just understand what, basic color correction is. And I think it's really important to just understand how to get basic color correction on set. You can either use like a color chart and just hold up a color chart in front of your actor's face and just get like a white balance and just a good reading of what the colors are on set, and just make sure that all of your settings are dialed in, your white balance, your color, different things like that. Get it right in camera and you really won't have a whole lot of trouble. Maybe you're matching cameras, maybe you're shooting with multiple cameras. Sometimes you want to slap a LUT on all of them so that they kind of match, or maybe you have like a Sony camera and a Canon camera and you want them to match Rec 709 kind of color space. So people will try to do that, but I really feel that it's much more simple and just easy to just manually adjust color and manually do a grade just by understanding what each slider does. Whether you're in Premiere or Final Cut Pro or DaVinci or whatever kind of editing software you are using, I just don't think that putting a LUT on really gets me from 0 to 80% or 90%. I feel like I get a lot further by just manually color grading and just understanding what I'm trying to do with the image. I've talked about this before on Instagram and kind of showed my loop deck, and I'm really a big fan of the loop deck. It's such an easy tool for just dialing in saturation, exposure, bringing down the blacks. It helps to get to your base exposure and base look that you want very, very quickly. Within like 30 seconds, I can bring down all the sliders and I'm happy. I can copy and paste onto multiple clips. The workflow with the loop deck is just absolutely amazing, and for that reason, I do not use LUTs. I feel like if you have something like this, one of these external peripherals that allows you to adjust color and sound and different things like that, you don't need a LUT. You should be able to use this creative tool. There's actually the loop deck creative tool, which is very awesome. I was thinking about getting that one, but I'm pretty happy with just the original loop deck, and you can do really well with color correcting inside of Final Cut Pro 10 with just using the loop deck. And as you progress as a filmmaker, as you progress as an editor, I really highly recommend that you don't use LUTs and you really just understand your software and understand how to color correct and how to color grade without using a LUT. And maybe you can look at LUTs as like a reference of what you want to create, and then just find your own way, your own path to that end result, instead of taking the easy route of just slapping on a LUT that somebody bought. I really think that they're a waste of money, and I really don't recommend them. Next up is gimbals. Gimbals are just something that I really have resisted in my career. A lot of people in the industry really have gravitated towards gimbals since they've come out. For the longest time, the best way to move the camera around, most dynamic way, was the Steadicam. And once the Steadicam came out, it kind of revolutionized the way that people were moving the camera and the types of scenes that were going on. In movies like in The Shining, when they're following the little kid on the tricycle, like that was revolutionary, like that kind of a low angle tracking movement. And for the longest time, the gold standard has been the Steadicam. And in the last, like, I'd say 5 to 10 years, gimbals have kind of exploded, and the price of them has dramatically dropped. Like, you can get one for like 500 bucks, $1,000 you can get an amazing gimbals. Why do I not like them? Why do I not use them? Because I feel like it's just one more thing to charge. I really don't like using batteries. I like to use manual follow focus. I like to use manual stabilizers. I like to use as much manual things as I can, tripod, things that, you know, I can leave in my car that are not going to overheat, you know, as much as possible. And a gimbal, you know, I can leave a glide cam in my car and it's going to be totally fine. If I leave a gimbal in my car, it's going to overheat. There's going to be, you know, the batteries are not going to do very well. It's something you need to kind of really take care of. It's an electronic device with cables and things like that. And yes, a high-end Steadicam I probably wouldn't leave in the car either, but you get my idea. I can kind of use and abuse my glide cam, take it to the beach, get water all over it, and still get shots, no problem. It's really quick to balance. Any camera I can balance on my glide cam or Steadicam, whereas only certain cameras will work with certain gimbals. And as the battery starts to wear out on the gimbal, it can kind of affect the performance of the shot. And the one thing that I really hate is the bob and the weave, and it just looks so robotic, and I really just, I'm not a big fan of the way the gimbals look. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of really awesome gimbal operators out there that really make amazing work, and for something like a music video where you need to repeat a move over and over again and do like really complex gimbal work, I think that it's a beneficial tool for that. But for my workflow, I try to avoid gimbals. The next thing is fancy transitions. With the rise of YouTube and people like Sam Colder, there's just been like, everybody's trying to do like travel videos and have swooshing transitions, and flying over the top and swirling around, and it's really unnatural, and it's kind of distracting. And sometimes when I watch videos like that, although it is cool and I appreciate how much work went into those type of crazy transitions, it almost gives me a headache to watch that kind of stuff. And I really try to separate my own work from that type of thing, because when I'm working in an edit, there's never a time when I say to myself, "Hey self, you got a pretty good video here going. Why don't you ruin it by throwing in a bunch of unnecessary transitions?" A lot of times your video is flowing just fine. You don't need to add all these fancy transitions. Sure, they look great sometimes, but a lot of times I feel like they're a distraction. You want to kind of forget that the camera is there. You want to kind of forget that the editing is there. The best editing is editing that you don't notice. It should just blend into the background. It should be invisible. You shouldn't have to think about the edit. When you see lots of flashy different things like that, it calls attention to the production and away from the story. The story should be the primary thing, and the camera techniques and the lighting and the editing should all just enhance the story. It shouldn't take away from it. It shouldn't shine brighter than these other elements. So that is one reason why I do not use fancy transitions, and I don't recommend you put them in your videos. Or if you do, just make sure that you use them sparingly. Okay, the fourth thing that I do not use as a filmmaker creator is Adobe software. For a long time, I used the Adobe Creative Suite, and the Adobe Creative Suite is pretty cool. I was editing on Premiere for many years, but I've always loved Final Cut. I've actually had Final Cut Pro and Premiere both installed on my system, because some clients like Premiere, some people I can just use Final Cut Pro and it's totally fine. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you need to cut in Premiere because, you know, you're using After Effects and the transition, the dynamic link, it's so good." I never thought that the dynamic link was all that necessary. I didn't really do a whole lot of After Effects work, and I can do masking. I can do pretty much everything that I need to do within Final Cut Pro, especially the new version with everything that's been updated. Final Cut 10 is quite amazing. There's never a time when I feel like I really need to I can do green screen, I can do everything I need to do within the editing software. It doesn't need to be sent out to a bunch of different softwares. I don't need to send it to Audition, I don't need to send it to all these different editing programs. I don't need a creative suite. I stay within Final Cut Pro for the most part. The one software that I use from Adobe is Photoshop. I use Photoshop, and I use Lightroom quite a bit when I'm taking photography, but photography is a whole nother thing. As a filmmaker, I don't really use photography. Sometimes for a thumbnail or for one of my clients, but photography, professional photography, is quite a different thing than filmmaking. And for that, I don't really feel like I need Creative Suite. I don't really use Adobe software, and I kind of try to distance myself from it. Maybe in the future I want to stop paying for the Adobe membership. I pay right now $19.99, and that gives me the photography suite, which is Adobe, Photoshop, and Lightroom. And Lightroom I use quite a bit to kind of tweak my photos. I use it on my phone. It's actually pretty helpful on the phone when I'm kind of going around, and I just sync my photos right to my phone. I can do a little edit and then post something on Instagram. It's kind of nice. But for filmmaking, I don't find it very useful. I'm probably going to let that software go eventually. It's just one way to save some money. It's not necessarily that you need to be paying a monthly subscription. I just watched a video from Matty Hapoya where he's talking about switching over from Premiere to Final Cut Pro, and I think that that's an amazing, very smart thing for him to do, because yeah, one payment of $300 and you have Final Cut Pro, and it's a great software, standalone. It's, especially if you're using an Apple computer. If you're cutting on Mac, there's no reason not to use Apple software. It just works so well together. Okay, so the fifth and final thing that I just do not use as a professional filmmaker, as a professional editor, is a laptop computer. I see a lot of people with MacBook Pros, and they're trying to do so much things, and they have all these dongles, and they're like, oh man, I'm traveling, I'm on an airplane all the time, and I'm working on these professional things. It's like, professional editors don't really travel all that much. If you're a professional editor, professional colorist, you are in a workstation. You are in an edit bay. You are somewhere planted with your sound and your environment, and you are in your office, and you sit there and you go to the same place, and you have your hard drives all set up, or you have a RAID, and you have your editing chair, you got it all set up with your mouse and your peripherals. Laptops are just not ideal for video editing. I see a lot of people, they start to use a laptop and they have all kinds of issues. Okay, I'm editing and the battery died, so now I gotta plug it into the wall. And then, okay, now I can't travel around because I'm plugged into the wall. Okay, well, now I'm plugged into the wall and I'm editing and the screen's kind of small. I don't have enough room for my timeline. Okay, well, I'm gonna plug it into an external monitor. Okay, now I have an external monitor. Now I want another monitor because that's not really enough. And then, oh, the sound is not really good coming out of my laptop, so I'm gonna plug it into external speakers. And then, dude, now you have external speakers and a monitor and this and all this kind of stuff plugged into your laptop. Why are you using a laptop? Use a desktop computer. Use an iMac. I feel like that's the best bang for your buck if you're an editor. I've had an iMac since 2012. I have my same still using this iMac. It's fantastic. I cut all my projects on it professionally. I spent about $5,000 on this iMac, upgrading it at the time when I first got it. I've made way more than $5,000 from using this iMac as an editor. It's a fantastic tool. I feel like it's so much better than any kind of a mobile laptop. When I first started out, all I could afford was a MacBook Pro, and I saved up for so long to be able to get a MacBook Pro so I could edit in Final Cut 7, and I realized that the laptop computer is not the way to go. Most of my editing is going to take place in an edit bay. I'm not going to edit on the couch. I'm not going to edit in an airplane. I'm not going to edit at the beach. I'm not going to edit walking down the street. I'm not going to edit in my car.
I would not on a boat. I will not with a goat. Not in the rain, not on a train.
I'm going to edit in my office with everything set up in the ideal situations with good lighting. And yeah, you need to have a setup. The best editing that you're going to do is when you are in the zone, in your edit bay, on your, powerful machine. Not when you have a hard drive dangling out the back of your laptop and it's halfway on the table, then you got a cable running over here to another monitor, and then you got headphones on, and then no, it's terrible, man. You need a good setup. And that's really one reason why I try to avoid laptops for professional video editing. So these are the top 5 things that I don't use as a filmmaker. What you use might be completely different. Let me know down in the comments below whether you agree with some of the things I've said, or if you think that, maybe some of those tools are something that are beneficial, and maybe certain situations where you use them and you like them a lot. I can totally understand, but these are things that I don't use, and maybe in the future I will use for certain projects, but they're really not my go-to things, and they're things that I try to avoid, and I feel like make my style the way it is. Hey, if you've made it this far, go ahead and give this video a like, and I just want to say thanks for watching. I encourage you to follow me on Instagram. The link is down in the description, so you can check it out. I post some behind the scenes of different videos and projects that I'm working on. Check out my Instagram story. A lot of times when I'm on set, I'll take snaps of different things that I'm doing and different lighting scenarios. That when I'm working as a gaffer, I'll show different things, or when I'm on set as a grip, different things I'm doing, or if I'm DPing, what cameras I'm using, I'll kind of walk through. And it's sort of like my vlog, my daily vlog is my Instagram story. So I encourage you guys to check me out on Instagram. I post a lot of really interesting things on there. Once again, link in the description. I'm Scott Stevenson. Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out my past videos as well as subscribe to see my future ones.